Welcome to Obsidian for Tabletop RPGs. Let's create some fantasy timelines. Alright, g'day guys, welcome back today to another Obsidian video. Today we're going to be having a look at probably a well overdue video, but one that I've actually not played that much with, and that is how to do timelines in Obsidian. Personally, I don't play with a lot of history in my games. I tend to play in the moment, right? So it's what's happening this week, what's happening next month. I'm not at that stage yet, whereas a probably mature dungeon master, I'm still relatively new to all this, I would say, about creating like massive time arcs and things like that. So I haven't played a lot with this, but it's always something that's been of interest to me, and for anyone who's obviously played around with any sort of dungeon mastering stuff, timelines is something that usually comes up. So let's dive in and have a look at the options that are available. And there are a lot of options, guys. For fantasy timelines, there's ways you can do things manually, or there's plugins that you can use, or there's CSS that you can use. I'm going to look at probably what is the most obvious way to do these things tonight, which is basically using something called the Timelines plugin. Alright, so let's jump in and have a look. I'll show you where it comes from. So we're going to go down here to Settings. Version 1 of Obsidian has been released, so everyone should be now seeing this, and this is the default UI. We're going to go into Community Plugins, we're going to go Browse, and in here we can do a search for timelines. Alright, you can see here that there's a number of options. So Timelines is the one we're going to be looking at tonight. Timeline is another option, but this is kind of like contained within a note, which is not really what I'm looking for. Release timeline I quite like the look of, but it is really about, it's not about putting a lot of detail in, it's just another option. But timelines is really the one that's been designed for like fantasy purposes, for your storytelling and your world building. So if we go through and have a look here, there'll be an install button, click that. Once it's installed, click the enable button, click that. But while you're doing it, go through and have a look at the README. There is an important link in here, and it's this YouTube link. We'll bring that up over here just quickly. So, well, we don't need to hear ads. So there is a video here that effectively shows you how to use this plugin. There's no commentary, no sound, so it is something you kind of have to watch and pause as you go through. But it does tell you the nuts and bolts of how to use this plugin. I will say this though. I'm a little bit nervous about this plugin. Okay, obviously anyone who's playing in the Obsidian space will know that the plugins are community developed, and what that means effectively is that if someone stops updating their plugin, then you're not going to be able to use it. And I just want to point this out to you guys, right? Because this is what I look at when I'm looking at plugins to see if I want to use it or not. I'm coming in here and having a look where the last commit was. Alright, so 7 months ago was the last commit. Alright, and we can see here that that's just cleaning up the README. It's very little actually functionality. But then what I also do is I jump into the issues and I have a look at the issues. Alright, because the issues is where users like myself come along and say, hey, I've got a problem. Is this plugin functional? Like, I want to report this to you. Let's get it fixed. And if you're playing around in my normal sort of spaces, you'll see like Javelin, for example, takes what? He used to take about 15 minutes to fix a problem. Now he's like gone and bought a house and got a new job and, got a life outside of Obsidian. Well, we're not very happy about it, but I guess good on you, mate. I guess, whatever. But outside of that, it takes him about 2 hours to fix an issue, right? He's active. He's part of our community. He sees a problem, he jumps on it. If you come down in here, though, and you have a look at the issues for the Timelines plugin, you will see that there's lots of issues without any comments on them. Alright, so basically what that means is that people are reporting issues and those issues are not getting fixed. So my personal belief right now for this plugin is it is a risk. It doesn't seem to be actively being maintained. There's no support for it. I would personally feel better if we had a more active participant in the community pick up or create their own version of the Timelines plugin, because there's been a lot of people who have tried this plugin and have had issues with it. So I just want to call all that out. Like, that's part of my reasoning why I haven't done a video on this specific plugin up until now, because I could see cracks. but it's been requested. I know it's a feature that people would like to explore, so we're going to have a look at it. I'll show you how it works, but then I'm also going to show you an alternative that I'm using that I feel a lot safer with. So let's jump in and have a look. Alright, so we've installed it. Alright, we've enabled it, and we now have the plugin enabled. We've got the README, we can read through the README and figure out how this thing works. Let's jump in and show you. So, there's two primary ways to do a timeline in here. One is the horizontal method, the vertical method. That's this one here. Alright, so you can see the timeline goes vertically. It goes, you can set the sort order, but it's going from oldest time to newest time. And I quite like this, right? This actually functions quite well. And you can see here there's pictures, you can click through to a note, alright, you can expand, alright, and you can change the pictures and you can change the text and all that sort of thing. The other version would be really cool, but a lot of people have problems with it, and I believe it's broken right now. So we can see horizontally, and what this does is you give a range of dates. So where this is just a date, we're giving a range of dates. So we can say this event occurred from here until there, and we can also stack them on top of each other. All right. And when this plugin was released, you used to be able to click on these things and actually see your notes come up, and you could click through to your notes. And I think that was obviously good functionality. And you can see here that when I'm clicking it, it is linking to my note and it's trying to do something, but there's been a lot of change that's occurred since this plugin was developed, right? The entire Obsidian environment changed just yesterday, for example, as a part of the one rollout. So plugins need to be maintained, and I think this one here has some issues. I have tried to install it on a fresh realm, or a fresh vault, just to check to make sure it's nothing that I've got that's getting in the way, and it doesn't appear to be so. So horizontal, while it could be a cool feature and you may still wish to use it, appears to be a little bit broken. Alright, let's jump in and let's have a look at the vertical first. Alright, so there's a few pieces that we need to understand. And what I've done is I've got some folders over here and I've made some very simple timelines. Alright, so we're going to have a look at the vertical. And what I've got here is the page that brings the timeline in. Alright, there's some code sitting behind this. Alright, we can see here you've got the timeline, and then you've got a tag where I've tagged it with vertical time. Alright, and then what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to open up this one so we can do these side by side. Alright, so we've got timeline, vertical time, and then all your notes, so you can create more notes in here to add to your timeline, need to have a few elements. So they need to have a tag, and it can be in the front matter or somewhere else apparently. I like to keep everything in the front matter, but it must be tagged with timeline to say that it is a timeline, and it must be tagged with the name of the timeline that you're creating. So in this case here, I've called this one vertical time. You can call it whatever you want. It just needs to be some sort of identifier that says this is related to this timeline, right? So it's basically a filter. I'm basically saying I want all of these to be included in this timeline, and if we come over here we can see 817, all right, it's pulling in here, the traveling mage is pulling in here, the picture is displayed here. Alright, so let's just walk through this. So we've got the tag that says this is a timeline note, it's got which timeline it's tagged with. Alright, and then we have to have this span. This here is not required. This was for something else that I was doing. Alright, but obviously if you don't have it there, you can't actually see your text in your note, and that's not great or ideal. Some of these pictures are broken, by the way. I've just copied this from another test file. You know, we could just do this for the purpose of testing, just so that works. But this section here, this is the code that makes it work, right? So there's a CSS in here, so it's saying, you know, we want to use the class for the timelines, and then there's some important stuff. So the date, obviously, is the date of the note. It's going to be where it occurs on the timeline, so data date. Then you've got a title, so this is a string, all right? The string is obviously what's displayed here. The data class, I think that is largely used in the horizontal. I haven't seen evidence of it working in here yet. A picture, all right. Now pictures, it does not support the WikiLink style picture like this here. It doesn't do that. You have to have the full path, unfortunately, which means you're pretty hard coding here. with these things. I don't like doing this, to be completely honest, and I don't think this would work, for example. Alright, if I did that, see, it breaks it. Alright, so you've got to have the full path where, you know, this is the start of your folder, so Z assets, /spells, /abjuration.png, like you've got to have the full path within your vault. You've got a data type range, I just leave that, and then the date end. Alright, so you could have this as 27. Alright, it doesn't make any difference, okay, because this is horizontal, it's only displaying it the way it displays it. Alright, notice that I'm clicking backwards and forwards in order to refresh. This doesn't refresh like live, you do have to sort of like press back on your page and come back into the page for the plugin to refresh and pick up any changes that you've made. Alright, and then down the bottom here you can see we've got the text that we want to display inside the note. So, you know, I would use this as a summary of the timeline event, and then down here in the body of my note would be where I would have more details about the actual timeline events that have occurred. And this works quite well. So you can see here we can, you know, have these things sitting on top of each other. We've got our timeline, it's nice and easy, we can hover them, we can go into them, and it works quite nicely. Now, just to show you what it looks like if you want to sort of create a new one of these, right? So we're going vertical, let's make a copy. Alright, that's the DR1. Alright, so we can come in here, call this one 900. Alright, we'll go 900, 900. Oh, I should just leave that, it doesn't really matter. Alright, this is what happened. Alright, so we've added a new note. Come in here to our vertical timeline, and now we have a new timeline. Okay, so quite easy for us to create a new one. I would recommend, obviously, that you make a template, alright, that has this all set up for it. Alright, so that you're basically just coming in, maybe you have a folder where you keep all your history and your timeline notes, and you have a template that basically creates this in here for you, so that when you want to come in and create a new note in your timeline, all you're doing is you're updating the dates, alright, and then you're coming through and listing it up, putting your picture in, and it just flows straight through. I'd have that all pre-configured so you just keep adding to it. So that's one method there, and I think that's quite a satisfying way for you to do it. You can see, you know, it'd be quite easy to move around and to navigate. I think that's a really nice one. And look, I know I said a lot about the start of this video about how I don't trust this plugin. This is the part that I do trust the most. Alright, but let's have a look at horizontal now, because horizontal is something that people have historically had a lot more trouble with. Okay. Alright, so we can see here that this is horizontal. Now we can scroll in with our mouse wheel in and out here, and you can see the spans of the dates, which is quite nice. Unfortunately, the clicking doesn't seem to be working for me. I do believe that's a bug, alright, but I'm not confident that's going to be fixed anytime soon. Alright, if we come over here, we'll have a look at our horizontal notes. We'll have a look at our code. Alright, so this one's a bit more hefty. So I'll bring the differences in here actually, just so you guys can see them. Put them all on one page. Can we actually put them all on one page? Yes, we can. That's cool. Alright, so we've got the timeline, alright, but we have to add the -vis in order to make it a horizontal timeline. Then we've got the tags, so you can see I'm bringing the tags equals horizontal timeline. Over here I've got horizontal time, alright, same way that I did before with this. I'm now using horizontal time, just so I can differentiate between the two. And I could do this as an example, alright, and that would then add in the horizontal stuff that I did before. But I'm just going to keep these separate for testing purposes. Then we've got a start date, alright, and an end date. And this is actually quite cool, because if you don't put these in, then what you get is you get a date that, oh, I think it's actually this one here, min date, max date. Let's try that one. Maybe I'm going to take them both out. There you go. See, the range of the dates is far greater now than what is actually usable. All right, so all I'm doing here is defining what I want that to look like. All right, I'm restricting the band of the visible area to where I want it to be. So start date, end date, min date, max date. All right, put those in there and just use it to maintain your view, I guess you would say. If you're only playing in 1,000 years, set it to only show you 1,000 years, all right? And then you can basically scroll in, scroll out to get to more detail. It'll make it more useful. Now, div height, this is quite simple. 600. It just sets the height of your time period, all right? So if you've got a massive stack of things that are occurring in the same period of time, all right, you could actually use this to show that. All right, and just to show you what I'm talking about there, let's just do a copy, make a copy, all right, go backwards. All right, see how we've now stacked one on top of the other, okay? And what we could do, just so you guys can see it, we could go 820 to 840, backwards, forwards. All right, we can see we can start to set our ranges. This is where the color comes in, okay? And you can see the color is more important for this part of the plugin, but certainly doesn't seem to be working. All right, maybe I'm just getting the names wrong. Maybe there's certain things that have been specified. I don't know. See when I click it, it goes orange. It seems to be all over the place, but anyway, it's there. It's not as usable, right? It'd be fantastic for actually displaying a really chaotic timeline, I think, where things are overlapping and lots of things are occurring. But without the ability to click through your notes, I'm just not confident that it's something that I would want to use. All right, so that's how you set up the note that displays it. And then over here, we can see we've got to set this up. So we've got the tags with the timeline and the horizontal time, which is the tag. We've got the span again. All right, and we've got to come through and put our dates. Now, I will say this. I've had lots of trouble with this plugin and date formats. Like, you do have to get your date formats right. So I've found that if you're not using a proper date format, it doesn't work, right? If there's strings in there, it won't work. Also, but I have found that it's quite simple to do. So 820 is a very simple date format, and that does seem to work. So play around. I'm sure you'll have some, there'll be some people who can't figure this out. I was one of them. It took me about a month and a half to figure out how to get vertical working. It seems to be working easier today than it used to be completely honest, but at the same time, there are things that used to work that no longer work. So as I said, just go with a little bit of caution. All right, so that's Timelines plugin. All right, and as you can see, it's quite nice. All right. I would just love a Javelin to come along, for example, and build in a timelines view into the Fantasy Calendar plugin or something, for example. Actually, I don't even think Javelin maintains that anymore. I think fantasycalendar.com actually maintain that plugin, so maybe they could do it for us. But it just needs to be actively maintained, I guess, is my gut concern here. So showing you how to use it, up to you guys what you do with it, go forth and conquer. All right, now, outside of that, what else am I doing? Because there's two ways to think about timelines, in my opinion, right? There's a note that has a timeline, all right? So it's a historic timeline where it's predefined, you know what's happened, and there's no changes happening to that timeline because it happened 1,000 years ago, and it's there as a reference point for you to go back and look at, or you to share with your players, for example. For that, I don't really need this, all right? Because this works on a single note per timeline, and while that's okay, you could certainly do it that way, there is another way. And that way for me is to use a single note that shows all of the information that's happening in a timeline. Now, this here is not the output I'm looking for. All right, so what we're going to do is show you another method now, and this is using the ITS theme, which you guys will have most certainly seen me use before. So let's go down here to settings, Actually, we're just going to shut down this. Is there like a close everything now? Let's go the slow way. Alright, so here's my timeline. We're going to turn on the ITS themes. We're going down to settings, we're going to appearance, we're going to themes, we're going to manage, and we're going to ITS. Now, ITS is by far my favorite theme. If anyone hasn't picked up on that, you're not paying attention. Alright, so we're going to use this theme. I've installed it, so I had to do the install and then use this theme. Alright, that enables it. Now we come in here and have a look, and look what happened. Boom. Alright, we've got a really nice timeline. Now, I've copied this from my primary vault, so the pictures aren't working, but they certainly could. For example, alright, got a few pictures in here. Alright, so you can have pictures in your timelines. Oh, what is that? Got some funky text going on there. Anyway, so this is something that it's a piece of CSS that comes with the ITS theme, and it's designed to enable timelines. And you might not want to use the ITS theme. That's completely up to you. There is a method here, and I've had a few questions about this, so let's walk through and have a look at that. If we go to settings again, we come into manage themes. Alright, we can click the show installed only. Now we've got the ITS theme. Alright, there's a link to the repository here. Alright, and what we can do is bring this repository up. Maybe. I think the kids are on Netflix. Alright, we can come in here and we can go through the README and find out what's going on. Alright, what this is, it's a custom callout. Alright, so if we go into callouts and we scroll down here and have a look, alright, there's a timeline callout. Alright, and there's text here for how to use this. There is a syntax that's required for sure, and what I've done is I've put these into a template so that I can just basically cut and paste them in when I need them. But this comes with this, and what you can do is you can, if we go backwards, we can come up here to the files and we can have a look at what have we got? We got the snippets, and we can have a look at the callouts. Okay, so this is the text that's making it work, and if you want to use this method that I'm showing you now without turning the ITS theme on or use it with another theme, you can do this, right? So we can come in here and click the copy raw contents. Alright, that's now copied. I would open up a notepad. Alright, paste this in. Click save as, and I like to call it the same thing that they've called it here. We're going to put it into our vault. We are in the test vault. We are in Obsidian. Alright, themes. Actually, I think you need a snippets plugin here because I don't have one. If I had snippets installed, there'd be something here. We can put a snippets folder in, so under .obsidian, which is a hidden file, by the way, or hidden folder. So dot means hidden. So you may need to turn on hidden folders and files inside Windows. But we'll go into snippets. We're going to save it in here. We're going to call it the s-callouts.css. Click save. Alright, that's now saved inside of my vault. Alright, and just for the purpose of it, let's go back. We'll go settings. We'll go appearance. I'm going to set the theme back to the default just to show you how this works. Alright, and then if we come down here to the very bottom of the appearance section, we now have a CSS snippet section. Alright, if there wasn't anything showing, you click the reload button. Alright, you can click open on the button there to show the snippets folder. Alright, so you can see that's where we saved that file. Alright, and we've got the s-callout snippets. So, just to show you, right now, that's not functioning. But if we go back in, we turn this on, that now starts functioning. Alright, so by using this method, we're now capable of using this with another theme. And let's just go through what is some of the really popular ones. Prism, for example, I think is really popular. Let's go through, have a look. What does it look like? Alright, we're now using that theme and we get the timelines inside of there. Okay, alright, so I'm going to go back to the standard. Alright, just so we can see it. Alright, and then we're going to go through here and we're going to go edit, and I just want to show you how this works. So remember back here in the under the GitHub for ITS, alright, so back in here there was a README file for the callouts that shows you all of the syntax required to use all of the different options that come with this callouts file. And guys, there is more than one. Alright, there is plenty in here for you to play with, but down the bottom under timelines is this text. I would, as I said, make that into a template, and this is what it's doing. So I have a timeline sort of callout box is what this is. Alright, so we can see it's timeline. Alright, we can see it's got a T-L. Now, T-L, like the L, is sending this box to the left. The R is sending it to the right. Alright, so if I go R, they both come to the right. Alright, if I go L and I go L, these ones both go to the left. Alright, so you can control which way your timelines are sort of visually displaying, and you might use that for something like a year, for example. Let's just grab the demonstration text here and throw this in to here, just as an example. Alright, whoa. Alright, so we've got some big gaps here. Alright, and it's worth going through and showing you this. So we've got a left, alright, we've got a right with a T4 and a T10. Now that T4 and the T10, if we come back here and have a look, add some spacing above the timeline callout to simulate how close events are in time. Alright, so it's the ability to come in here, and if we change this to 1 and change this one to 2, alright, we can see that they've come closer together. Alright, so that might be useful for those of you who are trying to show, I guess, that span of time that we were trying to use in the horizontal timeline previously. Personally, I don't use this, alright, because I find that visually it's not as appealing. I wonder what happens if you do that with no spaces. Looks like it does. No, it does not work. So it does need to have the space in between these things. So just a heads up, when I pasted that originally, I think I pasted it with a Control V, which took out the break line, but if I do a Control Shift V, it kept the formatting in there, so that's why that happened. Alright, so as you can see, that is quite simple, but also quite effective. Right, you can come down here and you can have your timeline and off you go. Now there is something else that you could do here. So as an example, we've got a 8/17 semester is born. What if we did 8/17? We're going to CA. What if we did this? Alright, so now we have a link to that note. Okay, so that is possible as well. So you could use this as a nice timeline to sit over the top of everything. It's not automated, but yes, you would have to come into this page and update these. But at the same time, I kind of feel like this versus what you have to put into a note with all that text there, I don't know, it's here or there, right, of which one's the easier process to use and which one's the nicer looking process to use. I think the functionality of the timelines in this method with the ability to sort of like minimize and expand is quite nice, right? That is quite nice. But I trust the ITS theme a whole lot more. Like SurveyB is on top of this thing, doing a complete rewrite of the ITS theme currently, by the way, in order to support, better support the new version 1 changes that have come through with appearances. So I've got a lot more faith that that plugin's going to be maintained. So for me, I would probably continue using this, and you can see that I've actually entered a timeline in here, right? Like this is more what I'm using. I think it's just a better option. All right, just keep that in mind with everything you're doing, because ultimately, if you log on one day and one of these plugins is broken, right, that is a real risk of what we have going on here, right? It's community plugin based. It's always going to be a potential risk in that it might just go away. Right? It might break and someone might not come along. Now, someone can obviously always take a copy of that plugin and start maintaining that plugin, but you know, as I said, it's just always healthy to check your plugins, guys. Check the community behind it, see what's happening. And I would say the same thing for your appearances, right? Like if I go in and have a look at the ITS theme and I go through and have a look at the issues, how many issues are outstanding? Are those issues assigned? Like, look at that. Every single one's assigned. That tells me that the developer or the supporters have at least looked at the issues that they've got here. We can see that there's chatter going back and forth, probably asking for more details, right? That's the sign of a nice, healthy sort of plugin. And if we come in here, when was the last commit? I'll come in here and have a look usually. I can see that the last commit happened yesterday. All right, so there was a fix for 1.0 released yesterday. That's what I'm looking for with every plugin, every appearance thing that I use going into this thing, right? Like it's just so much better for you and the healthy view of Vault to make sure you check these guys, so I do recommend it. So anyway, that's been Timelines. I hope that's of interest and use for you guys. I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out which ones that you do want to use. I will say this, there is some far more advanced and interesting methods for timelines. And if I come in here and have a look, right, so here's an example that's going to break because I turned data view off last night, did I? What did I do? Did a lot of bad things last night with my Vault. Pro tip, do not use the JSON CSV border for importing 7,000 notes at a time. It is a terrible, terrible idea. Anyway, this is broken, but this is a heat map calendar, and I use this to keep track of my D&D sessions, so this will deserve a whole other video, but basically, like, this is a thing where you can have it so it comes in and little coloured squares show, you know, when things have happened, and I use this to keep track of how many players have turned up for my sessions, have we had a session cancelled, and this usually shows everything. But I really did some damage to my Vault last night with the whole 7,000 import. I don't recommend you ever do that. So that's another video, guys, but that's also, that's not fantasy timelines, right? Like that is basically calendars working against the real calendar, Gregorian calendar, which, you know, if you're using that, you know, hats off you go, you can probably go and use something like that. But for a fantasy timeline, I think these are some of the better options for you. And just to call out that there are other options out there as well, right? So we did see that there was another option there called Timeline. All right, by George, and we can see that he's got another option here as well. And you can see his method, though, is very much similar to sort of CVV's Ash method, in that it's sort of like it's all on one note and it's got some sort of coding and scripting in order to make it work on that note. So it's another option. I just like this because it's simple, okay, and all you have to do is create a template for it. So you're pressing your template hotkey, boom, there you go. So anyway, this has been Timelines. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. Please do like and subscribe using the buttons wherever they are. And, you know, look, if you're looking to join the community, we do have a Discord going on for my Patreons. They're getting access to my templates and my vaults. And we're, you know, helping each other, you know, work through issues and talking about all sorts of fun stuff. So feel free to join us. The links are included, I think, all over the video or in the description. So, you know, feel free to find us. Just a call out for everyone, the Facebook group exists, so the Obsidian TTRPG Facebook group, nearly 1,000 members now, so lots of good chatter happening in there. But really one of the best places for you to join if you're looking to find the community is in the official Discord. There's a tabletop gaming channel. There's also a support channel underneath that for Javelin plugins, so they're all the TTRPG ones. So if you need help with anything like that, you can usually get into him very quickly. And also there's now a new plugin for a, I'd have to remember the name of it, I think Tabletop Manager or RPG Manager plugin support. That's going to require a whole series of videos maybe. It's shaping up to be one of the biggest RPG plugins, I think. Wow, it's a pretty insane plugin. We're going to look at that in depth, but there's a whole channel there for it. So if you want to know what's going on, guys, jump into that channel, engage with the community, and look, if you're looking for support, coming to me is not probably going to be the fastest way for you to get support. Like, jump into the Discord channel and ask in those channels, right? If you've got an appearance issue, jump into the appearance channel. If you've got a plugin issue, jump into the plugin channel. If you've got a tabletop question, jump into the tabletop channel. And that is where you're going to get the fastest support for everything you need. And usually that's the best way to get feedback back to the devs as well. So anyway, that has been Timelines. Enjoy your day. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will speak to you all on the socials. So have a great one. Bye.